Well, if you're joining me on Saturday night, pretty much of a bummer of a game for Hog fans coming into a much anticipated opportunity to pick up a quad one win against an unbeaten and still unbeaten Oklahoma unit that, quite frankly, was better at both ends of the floor, inside and out, most aspects of the game. When you looked at OU coming to this game on paper, looking at statistically, they're good everywhere on both ends of the court. And it looked like that way again as OU moves to 9-0 with a 79-70 victory over the unranked Arkansas Razorbacks. The Hogs, after winning back-to-back games, drop another game to they already had. The Hogs did the most non-conference losses under Eric Musselman in his fifth season with 3. Now they're up to 4, 6-4. The Hogs have lost 4 of 7, even though they'd won back-to-back games. A lot of the same problems biting Arkansas. And again, OU looks like a well-oiled machine in early December. It's got to be disheartening for Razorback fans coming in with preseason, national rankings top 15. A lot of expectations with this, what I think is still probably, when you look at it with diversity of skill set, things I talk about, depth at every position. You see Musselman's ability to play 10, 11, 12 players and not have a ton of drop off. The problem is, it's not the personnel, in my opinion. It's right now, it's the design and the personnel not fitting that design. I don't know if it's about the individual talents as much as it is about those talents meshing with what the system is providing on both ends of the court. That goes back to recruiting. You can look at Musselman and say, well, he's been in these situations before. He's dug Arkansas out of these holes in the past. We've never seen it come this early in a season, but Arkansas is playing its most challenging schedule. We talked about how tough it was going to be in non-conference to date, and some of these tougher games obviously being played out in November and December. No excuses, though. 4 losses is double in non-conference play what Eric Musselman coach teams have suffered in previous years at most 2 in non-conference play. So now Arkansas has that hanging over its neck. 79-70 is much closer on the scoreboard than what the game really was. Oklahoma used a 14-2 run. It was close early in that first half, midway, but as you went down the stretch of that second quarter, I'll break it up into quarters. Final 10 minutes of the first half, OU went on a 14-2 run, and you really started to see the patience of Oklahoma on offense. And how tough its defense really is to penetrate. And Arkansas doesn't help itself because Arkansas is a team that struggles with ball movement and getting defenders out of position. And a lot of that's by this design of offense in the system. Arkansas doesn't have a lot of moving parts on offense. You get a lot of dribble drives set up. Arkansas's first basket of the game of 3 was an L. Ellis pull up from 3. And even though it was one play and early and Arkansas takes a lead, I'm looking at that going, man, they're going to have to do better than pulling up for threes all game. They've got some guys that can make them, but that ball's got to move. We keep talking about it. We've said it so much. We didn't have a pregame today, but postgame we're going to talk about a lot of this. I did have a preview that I put out on HogvilleNET a few days ago, previewing this matchup. I went through all that Oklahoma does well on both sides of the ball, and I talked about Arkansas's keys to success. Whether they had Brazil back at 100% or not, you can make judgments on that all you want. He started in this game, and this was another poor outing for him. If you go back and look at North Carolina, we're going to give him a pass a bit because he was playing on a gimpy ankle. We don't know how good that was. I'm not in obviously in Tulsa today, so I'm not able to see this post-game press conference to hear any details so far about where Brazil was out as far as his health, what status he was in terms of percentage. But you got to think they wouldn't have played him if there was any chance that he was, not close to 100% because he's already missed a full, basically a full season injured with a knee, and you just don't want to put a guy out there who's gimpy with issues on a lower extremity like that if you don't feel quite certain that he can compete in a situation like that in a competitive game. So, excuse making. Second time in the last 3 years in this game that Eric Musselman's ejected himself. I think he'd seen enough of his team being thoroughly beaten. Cannot hand this on the refs today. This is Arkansas losing to a better team at both ends of the court. That's what it was. Musselman ejected himself. And that was the end of the game. Arkansas, despite being down by 12 points at halftime after that 14-2 run, had a 6-0 run to open the second half. Had a couple of good things go its way. Got within 6. cut that lead in half. And the next thing you know, OU goes on a 15-2 run. Part of that was Arkansas self-inflicted wounds, fouling a three-point shooter, giving up late clock looks. This is an Oklahoma team. When you look at how good it is, it doesn't play the clock. And this wasn't a big assist game for Oklahoma. We're going to go through the stats, but sometimes you don't have to move the ball, and it has to be an assist to prove that you've had a good offensive showing. Because we're going to look at the shooting numbers. I'm going to explain why OU's offense works the way that it does and how it just dismantled Arkansas in so many possessions. Arkansas had its moments, had some blocks today, 6 blocks, had 7 steals. There were 7 ties and 6 lead changes midway through that first half. Maybe, like I said, kind of drifting into that second quarter, then OU goes on that run. But that double technical, Musselman gets ejected. Part of that 15-2 Oklahoma run, the Sooners take their biggest lead at 52-33. The game was pretty much over at that point. Arkansas, got within, I think, 12, maybe 10, 12 points once or twice, but Arkansas was never in this game once OU really put that early second half run together, 15-2. I think it was at the 15:50 mark at the under 16 timeout when Musselman ejected himself. I'm going to phrase it like that. I mean, he removed himself from the game. His team was getting beat, and similar to 2 years ago when Arkansas lost by 22 points in that game. Arkansas did win last year, so the series now 17-14 all time. The Crimson and Cardinal Classic, whatever they call these last 3 games. The Sooners 2-1 in that. Now Oklahoma will be part of the SEC, and that becomes a conference foe starting next season. All right, so let's go through some of this. Not a lot of positive here. We're not going to spend a lot of time today. We're 7 minutes in. We're not going to do a whole lot of time on this one. Arkansas, 15 of 43 from the field, 34.9%. 4 of 16 from 3, 25%. The Hogs took 11 three-pointers in the first half when OU really established that it was going to force Arkansas to shoot from the perimeter. Arkansas tried to do a better job in the second half. Like I said, it worked a little bit early in that to start that second half, but OU was just too good. The personnel OU recruited, I mean, this is not a veteran team in terms of returnees. 4 guys back, four guys out of the portal that are in their top 8 rotation. Similar to Arkansas, Arkansas had 5 returnees back. Several of those in the top rotation when you look at Brazil, Devo Davis, Mekhi Mitchell. We saw more of Jalen Graham today. Opinion at the end when the game is over, but Arkansas also has its share of transfers. But what Porter Moser and Oklahoma are doing right now, I mean, they've beaten a ranked USC team at the time, at a neutral site. They've got a neutral site win over Iowa, beat the brakes off Providence before this, a 21-point win earlier in the week at home. So this is a good Oklahoma team. Give OU credit, and I think OU understood with game planning how to get Arkansas to play its funky style of low ball movement. And Arkansas doesn't have enough going on its offense. I mean, Arkansas's 2-man game is pretty simple. There's not a lot of movement off the ball. There's not extra picks on the opposite side going on. I mean, you saw early in the game, OU staggered 2 screens on the right side, making you think they're setting something up over there. And all they did was do that out high and then have one guy peel off, another one, Godwin, set a high pick and roll screen. He rolled hard to the basket and got a layup. A lot of OU scores tonight. When I went through Arkansas shooting from the field, a lot of OU's field goals, 23 of 41 ends the game, 56.1%. They were over 50% all game, hovering between 50, 55, 56. They were at 57 at one point. 5 of 14 from 3, 35.7 efficient there. Took a couple of fewer than Arkansas, but made one more. Both teams similar at the foul line. 22 of 26 for the Hogs, 84.6%. That's a positive, but they foul a lot. That's been a problem all year. 19 of 24 for OU, 79.2%. OU really hit its season number there, right around 79%. One of the best in college basketball, but the real problem there wasn't enough cushion in the free throws attempted, and that's been a problem for Arkansas in some of these games. Even in a close win over Duke, beating Furman by 14, but Furman hung around. The free throw margins were too close. Too close again, especially when you can't shoot and the other team can. And that's because I thought both teams early defensively were making plays, but OU just stayed patient with what it wanted to do. And again, 9 assists on 23 field goals. It's not bad. It's not great. The Sooners didn't assist on at least half of their shots. But their passing set guys up for long drives, and you don't get credited for assists, but that's part of what they do. They beat you way out front. In my previous article that I put out a couple of days ago, I talked about Uzan and McCollum being guys that are really good at getting downhill in the drive, their float, pull up, runner game, and you saw a ton of that in this game in both halves today. Or guys getting all the way to the rim. Some of their slashers getting all the way to the rim. When you look at Suarez and Mort, it wasn't necessarily effective today. But I thought the bigs, Hughley and Godwin, did enough, because I thought Arkansas might have a front line advantage if they could keep some of those bigs from getting some easy looks. And there just wasn't enough. Arkansas couldn't put enough personnel combinations together. There were some promising things when you look at individual players at times in this game. I mean, Battle, did his best to score and keep Arkansas in it, but only 13 points, 7 in the first half, 6 in the second. Tremont Mark in his first start since he got back, really a good game for him when you look at it. Jeremiah Davenport hit a couple of threes, got fouled on a three and made three, scored in the 2-point range and ended up with 12 points. But those, Battle 13, Davenport with 12 are Arkansas's only double-figure scores. But just offensively and defensively, OU dictated this game, dictated pace. I mean, this is a team that scored in the mid-80s. They didn't get there. But there was a bit of a grind game early, and I thought as the game moved on, OU handled adversity better. There were times Arkansas was getting deflections, really battling, and then OU would get the 50-50 ball and find a way to score. Those things really add up to hurt you, especially during defensive possessions where you're having some success and you can't close it out. OU was dominant on the glass today. This was something I wrote about. This was going to maybe potentially be a problem area for an Arkansas team that had struggled there. Arkansas hung in there on the offensive glass, only -1 there. Second chance points, OU only 11-8, but OU 30-20. 30-20 overall on the glass. It tells you that Arkansas missed a lot of shots, and Arkansas was not able to get much in the second chance points department. 8 points there, but OU gets 11. Where you can really tell which defense worked and which one didn't. OU won points in the paint, 36-16. This is the biggest stat of the game, I think, because the shooting percentages help explain this. I mentioned OU getting those long drives off their offensive design, not just guys going off and trying to make a play. They're reading what the defense is doing. You saw huge, wide open driving lanes for OU's guards, even their bigs. Not a lot of resistance. If you didn't block, you won block 6-0. But that's six shots that you blocked, and you probably altered maybe a handful more. But too much else was easy for OU getting to the basket. 36-16 points in the paint. It tells you that OU's defense did a great job of getting Arkansas to settle for threes, or simply defending, just staying in front of their man and contesting shots and making things difficult for Arkansas when it did get paint touches. Again, I'm going to go back to my pregame preview show. I didn't do a pregame Hogville YouTube live today, but in the preview that I wrote up at hogville.net, I said, at its core, Oklahoma is a paint penetration offense. Everything starts there, and you saw that today. And they pick and choose off of those off their work getting into the paint. And you say, well, that would be any offense. No, not really. A lot of offenses don't do as good a job as OU does of understanding how to use those drives in the paint off pick and roll. They got guards and bigs that understand how to maneuver in those situations and how to set them up with different. There's different things going on both sides of the floor when they're initiating their offense. With Arkansas, it's really drilled down to the dribble driver and the guy maybe setting a pick for him. There's nothing else really happening. And I mean, Arkansas today, 5 assists. How many times we talk about that when Arkansas was losing 3 out of 4 games? The assist numbers weren't there. And that tells you the ball's not moving for Arkansas. And they're having to do a lot of, mano-a-mano stuff. And I give Oklahoma a lot of credit for getting Arkansas in a situation where Arkansas really needed to figure out how to execute better, and Arkansas just wasn't up for the challenge. The Hogs just weren't up for it. Because I think had Arkansas been up for the challenge as good as OU's defense is, I think Arkansas could have made this a much closer game and had a chance to win. But they just never could. I mean, too many mistakes. I thought when you look at the turnovers, Arkansas actually won that 12-10. but both teams scored 13 points off turnover, so you didn't have any advantage there. You didn't have any advantage at the free throw line. And I mentioned, well, I'll go back to the preview article I did. I said Arkansas had to win at least two, maybe more of the trouble areas, on the glass. They didn't win that. The turnover battle, they didn't win that. Fast break, Arkansas was actually won that 8-3, but they got so thoroughly dominated in half court offense inside the paint that would just +5 there is just not enough when you're getting cooked +20 in points in the paint. And again, OU's offense makes things easy. The centers don't have a ton of All-American type guys on that team. I thought this was advantage Arkansas in actual talent, man-to-man up and down the lineup, but they've got a team, a group of guys already playing as a team, and they're dismantling teams for stretches of games right now. I talked about this against Providence the other day in a tweet I put out. 12-0 run to start that game, 21-5 run to close it, and you win by 21. They have long stretches of game where they're playing consistently good basketball, and they just pressure other teams to make mistakes, and then they capitalize on those mistakes. That's what I saw today. Oklahoma, OU win, told you so. I don't know who is that. Okay, well, somebody, but it's not a hard pick to pick an undefeated team. By the way, I mean, OU came into this game top 15 in the net rankings. Arkansas was 113th. Arkansas is going to slide. When you look at these NCAA tournament projections and bracketologies that get updated throughout the year, there's nothing final about this, but I don't think Arkansas is going to show up in any of those in the next, whenever those start to pour back out. Some will be out now and update as games go on the next day. Net rankings will break again tomorrow, and Arkansas is going to fall some more. Maybe they don't fall a ton, but Arkansas has not helped itself. And right now, the Arkansas's got to find a way to finish out December with wins. They'll get a week off. They play Lipscomb and North Little Rock, got to win that game. Then you get back to Fayetteville. You're limping at this point. You're trying to finish off the month with wins over Abilene Christian and North Carolina Wilmington, a Wilmington team that upset then 12th ranked Kentucky at Rupp Arena. So, I mean, Arkansas at this point can't look at the schedule and look at anything as a break in the schedule. It's all tough right now, especially the way the team's playing. I mean, L. Ellis is struggling as a lead guard. Another poor game for him there. Layden Blocker is still learning through true freshman mistakes. He gives you good stuff, and then he has some bad plays. He's a guy that I think ultimately needs to be in your rotation. I think he's going to have to be a guy that you figure out, help him along, get him in the rotation. I don't know what you can do to tweak things offensively. Saw some good things from Jalen Graham off the bench today. Had his best game, made some energy plays, a putback dunk, fought for some rebounds, blocked some shots, got some deflections. In that first half when Arkansas was hanging in there, Battle wasn't just scoring. He led Arkansas with 7 first half points. But he got a deflection off an OU player that went out of bounds, had set up and took a charge. He was making plays on defense. Arkansas needs more. I mean, Tremont Mark and Trevor in Brazil, arguably your two best players so far this season, both had off games. And you got to credit OU for taking not one but two of those guys out. This is what Arkansas, the Razorbacks have things cooking under Eric Musselman, they find a way to take maybe the top 1 or 2 guys out and give them bad games. And Arkansas is not doing that. They're not able to do that right now. I thought McCollum would be a problem for Arkansas. Herky-jerky, quick guard with skill. Can get you at 3 levels. A little bit Nick Smith Jr.-like. And certainly had his moments. Uzan is a guy that just a steady guy last year against Arkansas in this game, even though the Hogs won by 10. Uzan was a freshman last year, the combo guard, 6'4" combo guard, and he had 15 points and 5 assists in that game. So we knew that he could hurt Arkansas, and he did. He hurt Arkansas. I think this is again. There's not much, ray of sunlight coming out of this. It's positive when you look at 6-4. But you're a third of the way into the season. Arkansas can turn things around. They've done it every year under Musselman. He tapped out and got himself out of the game early in the second half when it was pretty much, it was obvious who the best team was, and I don't think he wanted to sit around and watch it. He's got to get back to the drawing board and figure this out. He's had to do it every year. So you can base on recent history, the last 3 years, just going off of that, the formula is he figures out a way Arkansas gets the rotations right. Guys start to understand their roles better. This is, and they've had some ugly runs, some ugly stretches. It wasn't like one or two games. Remember last year, 1-5 start in SEC play. I mean, they might be looking down the barrel of that again if they don't get some things fixed here. Because the SEC's loaded from top to bottom. It may not be a great team compared to other conferences right now at times. It may not be a great league when you look at it that way, but I think depth-wise, it's quality. I think, and so every night's going to be a tough matchup. So anyway, we're not going to spend any more time today. We're 20 minutes in. Going to say goodnight. Arkansas loses the final Cardinal and Crimson and Cardinal Classic. 79-70. It wasn't that close, folks. It was ugly. Signing off. Thank you for joining me, HogvilleNet YouTube Live. Hopefully next time when we do a post game, it's after a win. Like I said, Arkansas will be in North Little Rock, Central Arkansas, a week from today for the annual game in Central Arkansas against Lipscomb. That's at 5 p.m. tip-off. SEC Network Plus live stream for the first time in ages there. You'll be able to watch this game if you're not there in attendance. Until then, see you then.